Maharashtra state. In this recent trends, we have seen that people have started thinking about startups, businesses, entrepreneurship as their career and building their own empire rather than working for someone else. And yes, it's not always about the idea and innovation in our startups. We also need good investors to mentor us and invest in that idea for successfully implementing the same. And for that, we are very delighted to have so successful entrepreneurs and investors on our quest today to talk and discuss on startups, ideas, innovation, and investments. I would like to welcome our today's guest for investor panel discussion, Mr. Priyanshu Singh, who is the Senior Vice President of Paytm, Ms. Priyanka Madnani, who is founder and CEO of Easy to Pitch, Mr. Devesh Chawla, who is founder and CEO at Chatur Ideas, Mr. Vatsal Kanakia, who is principal and CTO at 100x VC, and Mr. Tushar Kansal, who is the founder and CEO at Kansaltancy Ventures. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining to our fest. I look forward to have a great time together in the discussion ahead. Now, I would like to hand over the stage to our moderator for the discussion, Mr. Vatsal Kanakia. So, over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Rutvik, and pleasure being here at the Pune Startup Fest by COEP, and along with amazing panelists like Priyanshu, Tushar, Devesh, and Priyanka. Super panel we have here with a varied set of backgrounds for founders to learn from. So without much further ado, let me kind of get started with the very first question, right? So this is about decoding investors' need is what we are kind of looking to talk about. So as an investor, right, Priyanka, Devesh, Tushar, and Kansal, maybe one by one we can go with what's the biggest factor in your decision towards a startup, right? Saying, okay, this is interesting to me, or this is not interesting to me. What is the biggest factor that really catches your attention, saying, okay, I want to explore further? I'm not talking about investing. I'm saying, okay, this is a startup that I want to evaluate further. What is the first thing you look for, or the biggest factor, one thing which makes you go, whoop, okay, I want to know more. So Priyanka, maybe you can go first.
Sure. So what's a really nice question, by the way. I deal with, daily basis, so many startups. Every day I'm listening different ideas, weird, good, best, better, like every kind of adjective I can use. But when it comes to me, where I get impressed when I hear an idea is when I see a good impact. When the impact is really affecting my emotions, and I can see a long-term, like me as an interested person in that idea. So I definitely see the impact of the problem and the solution.
Very cool. Impact is obviously, and any startup that is being built out will have a lot of impact generally. So super important point to look out for. Devesh, what are your thoughts?
So Vatsal, for me, it's a little different here. So for me, of course, I do look at what is the scope of this business, what's the unfair advantage, what's the revenue model. I look at many things, but for me, decision to engage is once I talk to the entrepreneur. So for me, the entrepreneur needs to have an edge over the rest of the guys that I keep meeting on a daily basis. So for me, I have something called as a PDF for me, which is not the Adobe PDF, but the perseverance, discipline, and focus is what I keep looking in my entrepreneurs. So for me, I would need an entrepreneur to be perseverant enough. Of course, one can just not understand that in a single meeting. I have my different ways of engaging, understanding, doing some background research to figure out how perseverant is he. Because if I can spend a minute here, so for example, Colonel Sanders, the founder of KFC, 1009 failed attempts before what KFC is today, right? Thomas Edison, for which we have the electricity today, 10,000 failed experiments. So people need to be perseverant, and that plays a very important role for me to decide whether I can bet on this entrepreneur, just for evaluation also, or for investing, or for anything for that matter. Discipline, of course, because one needs to be really highly disciplined. And third is focus, because for me, it is like one needs to have a laser sharp focus, because what happens with all of us also, not only entrepreneurs, is we keep getting a lot of opportunities our way, right? So it's up to us which one we want to take, which one we shouldn't, because the one that we all are batting for is the larger goal. So does those opportunities hinder our movement towards the larger goal? If it does, then leave it. and just focus on the larger goal. So I think that is equally important for me to check or see in an entrepreneur before I decide whether I wish to take it ahead. So
it makes a lot of sense, Devesh. Early on, I think you're betting a lot on the founding team, right? The idea may change, the market may change, the product may change, but in the end, the founders remain constant. So very important point. Tushar, would love to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, of course, the exact problem you are going after has to be very good. But I really like a team that has the capacity to recruit world-class skills and, to capture the hearts and minds of the people that really matter in the industry. And what happens is this is very easy to discern. But, you sort of feel it immediately when you sit in a room and talk to someone who really knows their stuff. And secondly, a market is big enough, it should be big enough that it can create a massive business over time. And thirdly, I like to see a fundamentally differentiated product. One has that has the capacity to really stand out with the modest amount of marketing. So these three very simplistic arguments,
Sure.
They held many years back and they hold true right now for me as well.
So Tushar, from the first point, what I'm gathering is you believe storytelling, the ability to kind of grasp attention of the masses, of the investors, the ability to tell the right story makes a lot of difference. Very true, very true. Primanshu, what would your thoughts be?
Yeah, I think the parameters to evaluate which startup we invest in varies from stages, right? And I do most of early stages, so I would be biased on that. I just look at two things. Does the market have a tailwind or not? Because are you getting support from the ecosystem? So looking at a business which is declining, for example, if you look at direct to home kind of a market, right? It doesn't, no matter how smart you are, it's very difficult to build a business there, right? Because the market share is being eaten away by OTTs. Second thing is the founder's energy. And one thing that I know from experience is that, the idea or the exact model which a founder starts with, it keeps on evolving as they go inside the market. So, the assumption is that the idea with which an entrepreneur starts is not the idea with which he or she is going to end it with, which means that the most important thing is the hunger of the entrepreneur to build this, or at least to make. So the question that I always try to evaluate is, will the founder or founders still continue to build the business even if they're not able to raise money? I think that for me is a very important thing.
Very cool. So, what I'm gathering, I think largely is it's about the founder, right? That the founder should be able to tell the story and should have that kind of that hunger, that hustle, that perseverance, that mindset to create an impact, right? I want to make a dent in the universe kind of thing, right? So let me lead that and build on that. And a lot of our audience will be student entrepreneurs, right? Just starting off while they're 20 in college, second year, or some of them might be graduating. These guys or these people will generally not have as much work experience as obviously more experienced entrepreneurs. What are your two takes as an investor? If you were to invest in a student entrepreneur, what would be your kind of one piece of advice on how to become more investable? Maybe Primanshu, you can start off.
Yeah, I think first is, assumption is that investors don't know about your idea as much as you know yourself, which means you should be fully prepared. You should go very deep into the problem statement and why your solution is going to win over long time, right? That's the first thing, which means your research, your knowledge about doing it. Two is to take a plunge, right? There is no way you're going to evaluate an idea sitting on the sideways. So your commitment to saying, I'm not going to pick up a job, I'm going to do it full time. And we know that there are going to be sacrifices made in journey, but I'm willing to make it, right? So because in India, everybody has an idea, right? But I think less than 0.1% people take the plunge and start building it. I think that is very important for me.
Very true. You just got to get started on it, right? There's nobody's gonna give you push or guide you ke aise karo dhanda. You have to start it on your own. Very true. Tushar, would love you to hear your thoughts.
Well, for me, I feel that our education system discourages you to even think about entrepreneurship. And they say, they basically mean you just do a degree and then start a job. So, any person who at a very young age is able to understand that the market is wide open, the world is wide open, and it is about application of knowledge, and it is about persisting with something, hustling it out. So a person who's mentally awakened to the real life at an early age, that kind of person, appeals to me a lot. And I tend to, once I realize that this guy really wants to do something, and he might pivot to a new business model later on, that doesn't matter. But end of the day, if he realizes the game of life, then there are so many possibilities of he or she creating something of immense value. So I like people who have taken the right lessons at an early age.
No, very true. I think market awareness is something that founders lack, right? They just try to scratch their own niche, which is not wrong, but then generally those are very specific problems they're trying to solve and may not lead to a larger market. So if founders are aware how the market is and what they're trying to solve actually has a market, it makes a big difference. Devesh, what are your thoughts on this?
So, Vatsal, what I see is, most of these student entrepreneurs want to build which is already there in the market. So it's more of a Me Too product where they are like, let us also copy this, let us also build that. So for me, I would like to see what is the differentiator they're bringing on the table. So what's the unfair advantage that their business has over what they have seen in the market? Because most of these ideas or most of these ventures that they're building on, because they're inspired by somebody and hence they want to do it. So then they need to have an edge. If this needs to have a larger run way, or it has to exceed what the other guys are doing, or they have to excel in the field that they are. So for me, that unfair advantage is pretty important to understand what is their unfair advantage. And the second is what is the go-to-market strategy. So how are they ensuring that they're able to achieve their goals, and how are they going to deploy that? Because if everyone is running for the same pie, then one has to have a different strategy to get to that pie, or have a different methodology to get to the pie. So I think these two things is what is really important for me to understand from a student if they are starting their venture or they started already and want to scale it up.
Very true. Student entrepreneurs tend to think, oh, उसने बनाया ये तो मैं भी code कर सकता हूँ. But obviously there's a lot of differentiation, and you need to build a product which is different for customers to move, and with a different strategy, a different business model, which really attracts investors and showcases your ability to think out of the box. So very critical there. And finally, Priyanka, your thoughts on any key things that student entrepreneurs should do to become more investable?
So basically, age does not decide when you can start up. Your degree cannot decide when can you start up, and experience cannot decide when can you start up, right? What is much important is that whenever you are starting up, you should be prepared with what is coming up to you. And if you're starting with an idea, the very important thing, adding on to everyone's point, is validation. Maximum number of founders, no matter they are student entrepreneurs or leave their job and then start, they don't work on their basics, or they don't work on the validation, and they just start like that, right? So it's very important to save our own time by doing a proper research, a validation thesis, that if this can exist, this is right for the market, is this the right time, is this the existing problem of like actual existing problem or not, or I'm just starting just like that because I want to do something on my own and earn money or become an influencer. So these things are very important to be noted whenever you're starting up, no matter what age it is.
Yeah, maybe I just want to add, Vatsal, if you allow, is that, it's, as a student, it's also important to know why are you starting up, right? I think that's the question. If everybody else is doing it, you're doing it, it's a wrong logic to do it, right? Because some of us who have failed in multiple ventures in the past know that it is not a flamboyant, cool journey as it seems on media. It's an extremely lonely journey. Your family doesn't understand it. Once your expenses are cropping up, but you have no income, there is so much stress that happens, right? So I think you should do it with the very, very right objective. And you could have your own logic of doing it. I want to problem solve. I don't want to work in a corporate or maybe I want to give it a shot, or I'm already so low in life that I can't stoop lower. The default of a startup is always going to be a failure, right? And that's why you begin with. Yeah.
No, very true, Primansh and Priyanka. Being a founder is obviously not going to be easy. And there's a lot of tourist founders that are coming up in today's day and age because it's cool or because there's a lot of money out there, and which is good because entrepreneurship has been de-risked to some extent because of the capital in the ecosystem. But that still does not mean you do it just on a whim. You have to do it if you really, really want to do it, right? Which leads me to actually two questions in my mind, but maybe I'll start with the first one. Many of these students viewing us will be just starting off, or even non-students who are viewing us will be just starting off in their journey, and they're probably thinking, I need a co-founder. How do they choose a co-founder, right? What are the couple things you want to look for in a co-founder? That's my question to all of you. Maybe Tushar, you can take this up first.
Well, you need a person who believes in your vision, and his approach towards life is in that particular field where you want to set up your business venture. Secondly, that person should have the risk appetite to, as Primanshu also said, about the entrepreneurial journey. It's not easy when you are making losses and the incoming cash is not coming. Then even the top CXOs get shaky. So what to say of a college person. And so you need to have alignment of vision, and secondly, the capacity to put in a certain number of years to commit to the venture, and also a set of skills which you bring, not only in terms of degree or a diploma, but in terms of the real skills. And in case that particular skill needs to be honed more, then you should be open to upskill and cross skill yourself over a period of time. So I think these are the main commitment factors which I look for, which I would advise students to look for in a co-founder.
Very true. Very true. I think buy-in into the idea is very important. And maybe that's also part of something investors will look into the founder, right? Have they been able to convince others about the idea? Very important point, Tushar. Devesh, would love to hear your thoughts.
So, Vatsal, here, what I feel is for a co-founder, you need to have complementary skill sets to somebody to be as your co-founder. So, for example, if you're good in marketing, you need to have somebody who's good in technology, perhaps, or maybe you're good in technology, you need somebody good maybe in operations. So, all your co-founders should have complementary skill sets to help you grow. In fact, sometimes I hear these funny things when talk to a few student entrepreneurs. So someone says कि ये मेरा best friend था, इसके लिए उसको मैंने ले लिया. Someone says ये मेरी girlfriend थी, साथ में कुछ करना था, तो हमने साथ में चालू कर दिया. So these are the reasons why just people have co-founders. But I think a lot of mind needs to get in. Why you need to have a co-founder, and what should the skill set that co-founder needs to get on the table? Because what I've seen with a lot of matured startups is that as long as you are doing bad in your business, there will be no co-founder conflicts. As long as you're doing okay in your business, there will be no co-founder conflicts. But the moment you start doing great, you will have co-founder conflicts because everyone says that ये तो मैंने करके दिया. So एक co-founder बोलेगा कि मेरे को credit मिलेगा, दूसरा बोलता है मुझे मिलना चाहिए. So I think it's very important to figure out कि एक तो आपके complementary skill sets हो. Secondly, you need to maybe draw your co-founder agreements in place to ensure that everyone knows what are their roles, responsibilities, and liabilities, so that once you become a great business or a huge business, you don't have conflicts at that point of time. So I think this is one that needs to keep in mind for finding a co-founder, and once you've got a co-founder, having some things in place to ensure the smooth journey.
Yeah, it's a tough conversation to have, but having it at the early, right? How you're splitting responsibilities, who takes care of whom, who has the veto on certain things, and making sure you have separate skill sets from the get-go so that you can take up different parts of the business.
Like
absolutely
having a prenup in place.
Yeah. Founders agreement. Absolutely true.
Can I add something, Vatsal, here?
Sure. Go ahead, Tushar.
Yeah. So, I've seen incidentally very recently almost 2-3 companies where they initially partnered with the co-founder with the belief that that co-founder will bring a lot of business and primarily the business driver will be the co-founder, and hence there was a equity participation with no shareholder agreement in place. And later on, once the business gets settled, set up by one of the co-founders, then it becomes a thorny issue. And so I fully back Devesh when he says that there should be shareholders agreement which you should sign up, and to clarify what each person is bringing to the table and what he's getting.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. So Devesh and Tushar have covered a bit of the important aspects, right? The more tangible aspects of it. What are the intangibles that you're looking for, or any other points that you guys want to add? Priyanka, maybe you can go first.
Yeah, Vatsal. So I really want to share this, that throughout my journey of 7 years of entrepreneurship, I have faced multiple times like the challenge of having a right co-founder. And I would say that it will come again or not, I'm not sure, right? Because this is something you not planned about. You don't know how the person that you choose will come up to you in the later time once the business grows, or if you face any challenge, or there are money matters that you're not able to sustain or whatnot. We face a lot of challenges in startup when we are growing. So it's very important to not just select the person in terms of your relationship with that person when it's about choosing co-founder. For student entrepreneurs, very importantly, as Devesh said, just because the person is a best friend or like a close friend, whatever it is, you should not go for choosing that person as a co-founder until and unless you have a trial phase with him. It's very important now, as I believe now, that you should have a trial phase with the person that you are going forward to ask that, okay, be my co-founder. Observe that trial phase, know your compatibility, know that complementary skills that you have, and how long you can survive, because ultimately the goals are to achieve the vision, right? The patience is required, the understanding is required, and when it comes to decision making, no one is a big person or a small person according to the equity dilution. So these things have to be looked upon in a very first trial phases, and then the equity dilution on paper should be taken forward to. Otherwise, it's actually waste of a lot of time, and the startup will get affected in the future.
No, very, very true, Priyanka. So I want to kind of flip this question a little bit for you, Primanshu. Obviously, another part of this is, right, we've been talking about don't choose on the basis of, oh, just because I have a good relation with somebody, I'm partners with them. You got to evaluate if they're bringing something to the table. But as investors, we're also generally the way we say is, okay, we're not going to invest in somebody who have a very transactional relation, right? Saying, oh, these guys know each other through some online platform. They spend maybe half a month working together while they have complementary skills, but they've not even met in person, right? And I can't invest in this team because I don't know, they might break up in the future. You never know how things go, right? So Primanshu, do you have any tips on that front? Or Priyanka, you want to add something there?
Good question, Vatsal. Good question. I myself faced this when I was raising for Easy to Pitch recently. Venture Catalyst asked me this question, and I was like, I don't know what happens in future, but let's see. But yes, this is how it is.
I actually have a very, very contrarian point of view, right? I think complementary skill set is totally overrated. I think the most important thing is can the founder and co-founder tolerate each other for 16, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? I think that's the most important thing. So for me, whenever I hear a pitch, if there are two co-founders and they don't have equal share, it's not something I engage with, right? So it's like having friends, right? It's like having friends. See, skill sets can be acquired over a period of time, right? It is not that two people are going to build the company, right? But what the most important thing is to survive the first couple of years, right? Work on the idea, get some early traction, and then build it. Right? So I don't even think you should look at what skill set the other person has. If you look at history of, at least in the Valley, the companies being formed, right? Both the founders of Google were coders. Nobody was there to sell. Nobody has experience of advertising, right? So I personally think skill sets will evolve. If there is equal skill in the game, you can brainstorm. See, like I said, it's a very lonely journey, right? See, I remember during my last stint, there was one day we were high-fiving each other because we had a term sheet, and next day we were really sad because the guy said he won't want to invest, right? So you want people who want to sit with you, you can debate with. So I think, like Vatsal, you also said, your co-founder, you need to know him. You need to know who the person is, right? You should be able to have a friendly chat with him, right? You can see, it's people who do startups. It's not that engineers only do coding, right? Or marketers only do marketing, right? You will based on the need of the business divide the role. There, IIT Bombay COEP grads are doing HR in a startup because that's the need of the hour, right? And in my existing organization as well, somebody who was doing HR is heading a business. So I think skill set's totally overrated. People, who if you want to categorize founders as skill set, they should better be working in corporates and not coming into startups.
No, good to have a contrarian point of view, and I think that kind of brings to the fore the fact that every investor thinks differently, right? And every situation is very different. You can get funded even with a half-baked team which doesn't really have all the skills, and you can miss out on funding even if you have the best team with all complementary skill sets in place. But I think let me bring up the next question which I had in mind from the point of view of tourist founders and how tough it is to start up. Is venture backing for everybody, right? Should everybody raise venture funding? Because that's what, you don't hear about bootstrap businesses as much, right? You don't hear, maybe a couple, right? Zerodha, Zoho, 𝐿𝐵 ka sunoge, but you barely ever hear about those businesses. You only hear about, oh, this person's a $5 million business, it's a $50 million business, it's a $500 million business, it's a $5 billion business, right? You never hear about this individual is paying himself a salary of $2 million and enjoying life with his company. How does a founder decide, do I want to be a venture-backed company or do I want to be a bootstrap company? Maybe Devesh, you can take this up first.
Surely. So, I would first say, what is the right time to actually raise funds? What really happens is, now this is how people define success in startups. It's the amount of funding they have raised. That's a success parameter. What is also getting difficult is the thought process why people want to raise money in startups is they want money. So it's like chicken and the egg story. So they won't tell the investor that you put in the money, I will scale it up. Investor says you scale up and I'll put in the money. Now, for me, the former case where you need money for survival is a scary situation initially. Of course, after you've reached a certain size in your business, you are beyond your Series C and D. At that point of time, the entire equation changes. So let's talk about the earlier rounds. So at that point of time, if you raise money for survival, the issue is, I can draw an analogy here with the patient being on ventilator. As long as the ventilator is there, you're able to breathe. The moment the ventilator is off, you are done. That is not a good patient or a good, healthy human being, right? On the contrary, if you need money just to scale up your business, you're like an athlete who is running the race. He needs supplements to run faster or perform better. But if those supplements are stopped, he will not stop running. He'll still perform, right? So I feel the right time or the right way to raise funds is when you want to scale up your business. And that is only helping you to grow up your business and not to sustain. So I think VC funding, so now that first talks about when should you raise. Second is VC funding or bootstrap? I think it's again depends on the nature of business, how much money you need, how much you wish to scale, how much can you pull off. As a founder and a co-founder, how are you brought up mentally, physically, and emotionally as a person, spiritually for that matter too? Because you need to understand, can you manage external money? Because there are a lot of people who are not comfortable taking external money. They can perform better when they're bootstrapping. They may take time, but they will do better. On the other hand, people are happy with if there is someone else's money and they're not putting in their money, they have less stress in that case, and then they can perform better. So it's a combination of multiple things to take a decision whether you should get VC backed or no. But my first point actually I wanted to address is, when should you actually go for VC funding, if at all? I hope I am able to connect the
No,
dots.
fairly clear, Devesh. Very critical. You need to make sure that the business has some sort of it can't be a living dead business, which is like just trying to add fuel so that it can survive longer. It has to be a thriving, surviving, growing business that looks for VC funding. Very, very true. Priyanka, what are your thoughts?
I really stand by what Devesh said, because being myself an entrepreneur and funded company, and initially bootstrapped, I believe that, fundraising is not an achievement. You're giving a part of your equity, which is a huge thing. You're giving somebody else to come into the decision making for your own venture, right? So I always believe that if you're able to sustain your own self with your own money, it's the best thing that you can do. See examples of Zerodha and companies like those, right? I really admire those bootstrap companies. And if, of course, if you need fundraise, it's important to justify that is your sustainability getting affected or not, or this is just to fasten up your journey to reach from 1x to 10x, rather than going it for 5 years, you can do it for 2 years, right? You can fasten up the process. That should be the right time to raise money, rather than just to start an idea, build a product. You don't know how far you can go, how far you will sustain or not, and then you're raising money. It's not justified to your own self and to the startup. So my words are like same as what Devesh said.
Super. And Prevanshu, do you have any thoughts on this?
I think all bootstrap companies are not equal, right? So even there are some names you mentioned of very successful bootstrap companies. So it is not that these businesses were built without money. It is just that they use their personal money to scale the business. So I have a very strong view that you as a founder, you need to reduce the points of failure, and capital is by far the largest. So you should raise capital yesterday, not even today. So never try to time when to raise money, because it depends on a lot of factors. I've done that before. There was a term sheet and we said we'll do it later. It never came again, right? So I think you should raise the money when it's available and have ample cash. At least the business will not fail because of lack of capital.
No, you're true, Premanshu. I think it's very important to make sure your company is always capitalized. But, just to kind of twist the question a bit on my end, what I'm trying to understand is, how does a founder take a call, right? Should I build a lifestyle business here where, okay, I'm able to pay myself good enough money, mera ghar chal raha hai, it's going well, or should I build a venture-backed business here? How can a founder take a call there, right?
Yeah, I think you see, every business is not $1 billion business, right? Some businesses will be 10 million, 50 million profitable kind of. I think it totally depends on the objective of why they started the business, right? Everybody's not going to make money, right? I mean, like we said, 99% people will end up failing very soon. So it is. My thought is, and I think Devesh mentioned that once you have a playbook in place, once you know that your solution, right, could be one of the potential solutions that's going to succeed, is when you should surely, then you need an advantage, and that advantage is only capital. Yeah, to deploy capital, see whether it fails or succeeds.
No, for sure, fair, Primanshu. And Tushar, finally, what are your thoughts on the venture-backed versus bootstrapped conversation that you're having?
Well, I feel that, if you see the growth out there and you want to capture it and you are unable to capture it by bootstrapping, then that is the time when you should say that, okay, I'm going to go the VC route. And, that means that there's a lot of clarity in your mind as to why you want to take that kind of money, because end of the day, the VC guys have also taken money from LPs and promised them a return. If they are not delivering the return to the LPs, then they won't be able to gather more money in their follow-on funds. So, everybody is in a chain, there is a whole sequence to it. And see, in ideal situations, VC money should be for everyone. Just like, a business needs working capital loan, for the right reasons, that payments come after 45 days, 60 days. Just like that, getting some liquidity in on the balance sheet, should be for everyone. And I also feel that this has a lot to do with the ease of business to fold up sick companies. So, so you encourage risk taking by saying that not only we are going to provide you liquidity if it is required on the balance sheet side, but we will also allow you to fold your company easily in case you fail. And that's where the role of laws and governments they come into being. And as far as saying that which kind of businesses should be funded by VCs, I have thesis around a lot of sectors, but time and time again I open a news website and I see some very simple traditional kind of business getting $3 million, $4 million, nothing, no great shakes. And that makes me believe that ideally all kind of businesses are VC compatible. And when we talk about what is the differentiation in your business with your competitors, it is overhyped, because in case the market is huge, then there is a place for so many people. And you might be doing it at a different price point or a different kind of product, and still making a lot of money and beating your competitors. It's just the ease of liquidity situation is very important. Just like in Y Combinator, you present yourself for 10 minutes and then you start telling the investors sitting there, where is the check? You have heard me for 10 minutes. So that is the impact of easy liquidity which I see. And one point which Primanshu said about raising money at the right time. So you don't have to integrate your profit and loss and balance sheet side. So so to say that when my profit and loss is such that I might run out of cash, then I raise funds. No, that is the wrong thing to do. When money is easily available on the balance sheet side, you raise money, treat your treasury as a profit center, invest that money wisely and make some treasury income. And when the times are bad, at that time you don't raise money because you won't get a good valuation, and rather save precious cash.
Thank you, Tushar. Fairly comprehensive, and actually that leads me to another couple questions. But before that, I just want to, in case there are audience questions, Rutvik, maybe you can help us out with that in the chat, and we can take those up as well, because otherwise I'll just keep asking the questions I have in mind, but I'm sure founders have questions too.
Yes, sir. Would you like to take questions from students?
Yes, please.
Yes, so there are many students from COEP as well, those who are watching this discussion, and many of us have their own startup, including me. So if we have a startup and we are working on it, so what would be your that one advice for college student to work upon a startup? What would be that one advice you will give to him or her?
Sure. So I think maybe Primanshu, you want to go first for this?
I don't know whether I can give one advice or not, but I would just say first figure out how to survive for maybe 3-4 years. I think that's the first question. Whatever idea which when I say survival, it means, are you passionate about doing it for long, right? Can you sustain without an income, right? Do you think you'll be able to build a team? So if you have a formula to survive for 3-4 years, I think you'll surely succeed.
Super. Tushar, what is your one advice to student founders?
Well, I will say every smart CEO has a CFO inside of him, in the sense that watch your cash flows. Keep your eye totally focused. See your costs are there, your salaries.
So I think we have engineering students, so maybe you can elaborate a bit on cash flows. It'll be easier for them.
Sure. So the business, makes some cash in the process of, the whole process. So the revenue comes in, or, liquidity comes in by selling your shares. So either money comes inward from the revenue side, or it comes from selling your equity. But in any case, you need to manage your cash very effectively, so that your business can run in the longer term, and also achieve the aims and objectives. So any smart CXO, whether he is in a 25-year-old, he has 25-year experience or 40-year experience, keeps his eyes on the cash flows. And costs are going to be there. You'll have to pay salaries, you'll have to pay the marketing guy, you have to pay the agencies, you have to pay the office rent. But if the revenue doesn't come in, the 30% or 40% or 50% growth does not come in, then the whole thing collapses. So
Very true.
you have to tell your people in the front, your boots on the ground, that buddy, you have to achieve whatever targets the company has to set. And it's pure business logic. It is nothing to do with beating your chest about you being better or stuff like that. End of the day, the cash inflow has to come in
Absolutely.
for the
So
company to be
students-
sustainable and profitable and good for the investors, good for the founder, good for everyone.
Yep. So students, what Tushar is basically saying is you can't put your hands up and say, मेरे को finance नहीं आता है, मैं किसी को hire कर लूंगा. You're building the company, you're the owner of the company. You need to make sure you understand numbers, you understand where the money is coming from, where it's going. You need to have a tab on the money, right? You need to make sure you're growing. You need to make sure you're communicating that message to your team as well. And making sure everybody understands what the business is doing, what the health it is, what's the health of the business, and is it growing, is it not growing, how can it make it grow, and how can you make sure the money keeps coming in, right? The cash flow is constant. Thank you so much, Tushar. Very important point. Devesh, would love your thoughts. One advice to student founders.
So since your question, Rutvik, is on students starting this up. So, you also need to understand, or all students need to understand, that everyone is not meant to be an entrepreneur. I know I'm not talking very rosy words here, but that is a fact of the matter, that entrepreneurship is not everyone's cup of tea. So you should understand why you're being an entrepreneur. If you feel that you want to be an entrepreneur because it's so glamorous, then think twice. If you're thinking to be an entrepreneur because you think you're going to get a huge valuation and take huge money home, think twice. If you think you're going to be your own boss, think 5 times, because your client is going to be a boss. If you think you're going to have an enjoyable life, trust me, ask any entrepreneur how much they slog, nobody else slogs themselves out. So, you need to first understand why you want to be an entrepreneur, number one. Number two, figure out, are you meant to be an entrepreneur? So one has to get into that exercise to do that. Maybe we can discuss about how to do that maybe sometime later due to the paucity of time. So once you're sure why you're doing that, you know the reason why you want to be an entrepreneur, I think then you should start your journey towards entrepreneurship. And then, like how Priyanshu mentioned or Tushar mentioned right now, those are the points then you can start working upon. But first, just be clear whether you are fit to be an entrepreneur, A. B, if yes, why you want to be an entrepreneur. So first, get those basic questions answered before you step into your shoes of entrepreneurship, because you also have your education at stake. Because some time ago it became too glamorous to be into IIT or to be into any prestigious engineering college and just get dropped out and start your venture. So think twice, 5 times, 10 times if you take any such decision, because education is equally important than building your venture. So those are my 2 cents.
No, very true. The right motivation makes a big difference, right? I think just doing it for the glamour, you're probably going to regret it 10 years down saying, I took this journey, right? Rather do something that you love, even if it's as a job, right? As long as it makes sure it's something you can do and you want to do. So very, very true, Devesh. Priyanka, finally, what is your one piece of advice for student entrepreneurs?
So basically, I started when I myself was a student entrepreneur. I was in my 2nd year of graduation. So if I talk about my journey, I definitely faced those kind of challenges which are usually faced by students when they start up. So, execution is something really important, no matter what is the problem, what is the solution. If you're able to run the business, you can execute and make it exponentially, scalable. But that can only come if you are clear with your basics. You require how to run an organization. You require the different skill set of marketing, selling your concept, your solution, developing leadership qualities, running a team. You cannot do all alone. Doing partnership, collaboration. So these all skills have to be created within ourselves at the moment when we are starting up, and that can only come when we are actually having some life experience of either doing an internship somewhere or a job somewhere, or trying it out somewhere, like starting up, facing challenges, or getting rejection, and then start again. So these things came in my journey when I successfully established Easy to Pitch after facing all initial student challenges, right, and solve them, and then became from a 0% to a 30 people team, right? So those kind of challenges will only come when you're clearing your basics, fundamentals, becoming well suffice enough to run an organization and execute the business. So no matter, even as a student. So yes, that's what I did in my entrepreneurship journey.
No, very true, Priyanka. It's all about execution, right? An idea without execution is not an idea. An idea with execution is a startup. Very, very true, Priyanka. And Ritwik, any other audience questions before I go on to my final questions?
Yes, very insightful. Thank you so much for your answers. Yes, there's one more question. As like most of you are from finance domain, so what do you think in the year 2022, the world of finance will look like in future? What are your views on this?
Maybe Tushar, you can take it up. How do you see the world evolving? Lots of capital flowing in, lots of dry powder. Do you see the finance world changing, evolving? What's the direction we're taking right now?
Well, we have been on a party since 2009, and $25 trillion worth of currency has been printed by the US alone since 2009, and all that money gets companies borrow that kind of money and very cheap, and put that money in investment activities, speculative activities. And venture capital is a risky kind of activity, so a lot of money comes that way as well. So given the state of the global economies, I feel that there will be hiccups in terms of interest rates rising across the world to protect the currency and to deal with inflation. So those interest rates might rise, so you might see some slackening in the amount of money coming by way of venture capital. But India is the only economy apart from China which has this kind of a population and this kind of a growth rate. So there is, and if you work in China, then you have to surrender your intellectual property. You have issues like you have to follow the, you can't integrate deeply with the international economy. They have a separate internet, they have separate companies, and you need to form JVs. Indian market is totally free, totally open, the freest kind of economy for FDI in the world. FDI is liberally allowed across companies. So I feel the party in India will go on. And we are a market which is very shallow in the sense that $6 to $7 billion, if they leave the stock markets, then the stock markets fall by 2,000 to 3,000 points. So I'm talking about stock markets because it's again an investment activity which is very much in sync with venture capital kind of activity. So we will see some blips, especially with this Russia situation and Russian banks being kicked out of SWIFT by the global, the Western institutions and the governments. So we are likely to see blips. Inflation will be a big concern, and just as we speak, since 3 days, commodities are making 52-week highs. So all that money will cause inflation, and because of inflation, the interest rates will likely rise. So the party is likely to be less funky in this year. And but having said that, for India, the long-term trend is more and more unicorns, more and more consumer type companies, because we are a consumption-led economy, and more and more money coming into the venture capital world. That's over the long term.
Well, I mean, that was really comprehensive from Tushar, to be honest. I don't know if there's much to add to it, but Primanshu, would love your thoughts if you'd like to add anything onto Tushar on how you see this evolving.
I would just restrict my my comments more on the startup ecosystem. So largely believe that the earlier the investors used to evaluate startups largely on Mao DAO, right? Those kind of things, because India had cheap Mao DAOs. I think that thing is over now, right? Now there is a lot of rationalization on valuations, and people are asking questions on what is your business end goals, right? And people have also realized possibly the best way to make for a business to make money in India is to be in the financial space, which is either lending, insurance, wealth tech kind of a thing. So I think most of the money is going to come on business models which have at least a clear guidance on where the revenue is going to come forward in next 3 to 4 years. I think, and what's happening in the startup ecosystem on funding is what's called the mercurial rise, right? So, but there is also a mercurial fall that comes in. While more and more companies are going to get funded, you will also see more and more companies dying an early death. But I think that's part of the game. But one thing, at least I'm pretty bullish on, that tomorrow is going to be better than yesterday for sure for the startup ecosystem. Yeah.
Very, very aptly put, Primanshu. And I think this is the attitude that every entrepreneur will have to succeed. Tomorrow will have to be better than today. Devesh, what are your thoughts on this?
I completely agree with you on Vatsal. So one has to, in the worst case scenario, Rutvik, we have to live with the hope that tomorrow is going to be better, because that's what is going to make you work hard, right? And be happy every morning when you get up working on your startup. So tomorrow has to be better. In fact, the question that you have asked, the answer has to be only one, that it's a bright future. And why I say so is, we saw the Spanish flu, we saw World War happening, we saw Great Depression happening, right? 1920s to 1940s. What happened? Everything came out. Where the stock market was 50 years ago and where it is today, you all know the money has grown 1,000 times for everyone. We saw the dot-com bust happening. People thought the world is ending. What happened? The money became 10 times. We saw 2008, the Lehman crisis happening. The mother of all crises was called. People said if Lehman can fail, everything in the world can fail. The world will collapse. 2008, we saw a huge drop in the markets. 2009, 100% returns in 1 year. 2020 COVID, people said it's going to be worse than Spanish flu. We are going to end the world. What happened? We saw the money doubling, right? So every crisis is an opportunity, and money always keeps going up. Even in fact for investments. So this is about the world financial markets. To answer your question, Ritvik, talking about the startup ecosystem, even that has boomed. Everyone thought अभी crisis आ गया है, अभी सब लोगों जो startups हैं उन लोगों को सिर्फ sale through करा दे investors, it's more than enough. But what happened? I'll give you an example. What happened with me? So I had invested in a company called Hubilo, which is an event tech platform. I invested in 2016. In 2020, he tells me that, Devesh, we are giving you an exit, and all the investors, of course, together. In fact, even Girish was a part of this round, the Freshdesk founder. So he said, we're giving all of you guys an exit. We're giving an 8x exit on your investment. And I was like, wow. So he was raising $4.5 million and he was giving us an 8x exit. All of us were happy. We said, let's take our exit. 2020 hai, COVID ka peak hai. I don't think we will get better returns than this. We all took our exit. Today, we all are feeling so bad about the exit, because what happened was 6 months later, so he moved to San Francisco from Ahmedabad. 6 months later, he raised another round at $23.5 million. So our 8x would have become close to 40x. The story does not end there. 4 months ago, he raised another round of $100 million. So our 40x would have become 170x. And we are like, we exited so early. So, that's how things happen. And the answer to your question in short, it's a bright future, bright financial future for everyone.
Well, Devesh, thank you for sharing that story. I know Vaibhav fairly well, and okay. I've seen his journey just like you. Though not as an investor, unfortunately, it's an anti-portfolio for me, but I can understand where it is. And on a long, the idea here I take away is on a longer term view, if you take a long term enough view, 10, 15 years, all of these crises are really blips, right? But generally, the idea is of growth and improving and getting better and better as an economy, as a world. Very truly said, Devesh. And Priyanka, finally, what are your thoughts on the financial ecosystem? You're on mute.
Yeah,
Priyanka.
I think most of the things have already been discussed, but I would say that as a founder, and even if like as an investor, if I come this see the coming time, we have passed COVID really well, to be honest. What we expected, the opposite happened. Yes, many companies shut down, many startups shut down, but many, like 100 times those number of startups came up and emerged like anything and got funded. So money is there in the market. Investors do have money to invest in good ideas, good solutions, and the startups are also emerging. So I would say the future is not that bad. It's really, really good. It's just that we have to be prepared really well for anything that comes, whether it's how investors look out like for the startups, and how, the growth can be of the industry in which you are starting up, right? So that analysis is really, really important, at least next 5 years. No matter how good future is, we have to be ready as a founder with our figures and numbers.
Very true. Very true. It's a balancing act, right? Having a 30,000 feet view, but also having that minute 3 mm view, so that you kind of know what's going on the shorter term and the longer term.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty much through with the time. I have one last question for all of you. One sector that you're very excited about over the next 2 years. Priyanka, we can start with you.
Sorry, I did not get your question.
One sector that you're very excited about over the next couple years.
I am very excited about the food tech business.
Food tech, excellent. Primanshu, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say it's largely in the financial space. The way markets evolve, it moves from payments to lending to insurance to wealth tech. I think this is a time when lending companies are flourishing. So I would put my on a maybe 5 to 7 year cycle, I would put my bet on insurance and wealth tech.
It's also a perfect match. So if you're building anything in fintech, you should reach out to Primanshu because he comes from that background. Tushar, what's one sector you're very excited about?
See, I have been like, when I talk to these a lot of young founders, they are actually making profit and loss account side money. They are making profits in gaming and D2C. So, even if they don't get investor money, they are in profits. And in gaming, I recently was talking to a Ahmedabad based guy. He is just like 22, 23, making 65 lakhs. He had already made a profit of 65 lakhs. So, he was not bothered about investor money. And so anything which is so positive in unit economics, that's bound to succeed. And hence, I am very positive on gaming and D2C, direct to consumer.
Very exciting sector to be in, gaming and D2C. Devesh, what are your thoughts?
So for me, it's fintech and edtech. Fintech because the way things are getting automated. In fact, even for that matter, even your stock markets, the way algos are coming in. So if you see everything's getting automated and transactions become easier, financial literacy is increasing. People are able to take decisions on their own. People understanding the value of asset allocation. So the way the entire fintech industry is evolving on a B2C and even B2B for that matter is superb. So my first bet is on fintech. Second is on edtech for sure, because today everyone wants to learn more, wants to get trained more, and with things getting from the online mode or from the offline mode to the online mode and now in the hybrid mode, I think edtech will pick up more. And the way now edtech has been positioned, which helps you to make money, because if you have better training or better skill sets, so people are moving more towards edtech education, want to understand more things, and then eventually get a good job or build your own venture, etc. So for me, fintech and edtech are the two major bets that I'm on.
Super. So I think we have a very varied set of sector interests. So if you're any of the sectors, reach out to these investors, who they are. But with that, I think thank you everybody, to all of the panelists, Primanshu, Tushar, Devesh and Priyanka. Very, very insightful for me as well, and I'm sure for the students. Thank you so much for joining in today, and thanks to COEP and the PSF team for setting this up.
Thanks everyone, and special thanks to you, Vatsal, for moderating it so very well.
Yes, so very nicely. Thank you, Vatsal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Primanshu. Thanks, Priyanka. Thanks, Devesh.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah. Pratik, do we log out now?
Yes, thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge and learnings with us. This is like one of the most insightful, like a real world actionable session and discussion we have ever had on a Pune Startup Fest. So looking forward to talking and learning from you all again in future. Excited to see you again. Thank you so much.
Rutvik.
Yes, bye.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.